Hi, I'm in Delaware. Why do you hear about so many businesses registering in Delaware? Well, it's not for everyone. It's not for every small business or startup, but for some, it's almost essential. So let's talk about what all the fuss about Delaware is all about. I'm Mark Lyda from Lyda Law Firm. Let's get started. Okay, so here's the thing. A lot of business owners start a business. They say, I've heard something vaguely about starting in Delaware, so I guess if I'm going to be fancy and be a business owner, I should register my business in Delaware. But the fact is, not all businesses have to do it. If you have a more traditional type of business where you're really going to be just working locally and you're not going to be like listed on the NASDAQ someday, Delaware might not be for you. So it's like, in that case, don't overcomplicate things if you don't have to. But if you are starting a hopefully rapidly scaling startup, if you are seeking investment from venture capital or angel investors, if you're trying to build $1 billion business that will be traded publicly someday, then more likely than not, you're going to want to register in Delaware. Of course, every situation is different, so you've got to find what's right for you. But most commonly, that type of business registers in Delaware. Why? Because investors want you to, is what it really boils down to. So why do investors want you to do that? We talked in an earlier video in this playlist about why investors want you to become a C corporation. So why do they also want you to be a C corporation that is registered in Delaware? Maybe you've never been to Delaware. Maybe you don't really do much business in Delaware. That's all okay. The reason investors want you to be registered in Delaware is because Delaware has a really well-developed body of corporate law. They even have specialized courts. And so ultimately, it does make it easier for investors to sue you because, probably their attorneys are very familiar with the well-developed body of corporate law in Delaware, but it's also just kind of like a more predictable type of justice there. Because here's the thing, this is actually kind of interesting. Something you might not know about the law is that there are many situations that you'd think would have laws written about them already that are really like open-ended. I learned that when I was clerking for a judge and we were in an appellate court, and issues would come to us that were called matters of first impression, meaning there hasn't ever been a ruling about this before. Well, in Delaware, because there's so much mass of business litigation, many more types of scenarios have been resolved. There are really well-developed laws and well-developed common law, meaning published judicial opinions in Delaware, and then the judges are really familiar with that area of law. So you really get a more specialized type of justice if you are involved in a lawsuit involving your corporation. There are also some advantages for the people running the business. There's a little bit more privacy in Delaware in terms of the identity of corporate officers and directors. Some states require that to be public. Delaware, at least at the time of this filming, does not. You have a little bit more latitude with sharing some of your corporate records with shareholders because they have to jump through a few more hoops to get those records from you. But it's a good idea to share them with certainly your board of directors and shareholders as appropriate anyway. Ultimately, what it boils down to is the investors want it, so you have to do it if you want investor money very frequently. Every investor is different, but that's kind of like the conventional wisdom. So if you're trying to show that your company is ready to take on venture capital, frequently the investors are going to want to see, okay, have you already registered as a C corporation in Delaware? Are you all set up with that process? Okay, you're serious. We're glad that's behind us. Of course, you can register in other states. You sometimes see people thinking, well, let me think about state income tax a little more when I'm registering my business. If you're doing that, make sure you're doing it under the guidance of a CPA or a tax attorney, because oftentimes it's kind of like you're too smart for your own good trying to do something like that, and you might be better off just being in either your home state or Delaware. So if you feel like you're being really clever about where you are registering your business, make sure you're doing it under some professional guidance. Okay, so here's a question. Do you need a Delaware lawyer in order to register in Delaware? No. There are some services out there that you can use to do it yourself. If you want to have an attorney do it for you, you can often use a local attorney wherever you are outside of Delaware in the United States, because while there aren't very many Delaware-based attorneys, and it's difficult to become a Delaware attorney because they make attorneys jump through a lot of hoops to become a Delaware attorney, they do allow non-Delaware licensed attorneys to help you with things like registering, and so there is some leeway given to out-of-state lawyers to do that sort of thing. Again, consult a lawyer in your state about what they can and can't do involving Delaware. This is part of a larger playlist. Please check out the other videos and let me know if there are topics you'd like me to cover in this playlist. Thank you for watching. Please click like and subscribe to help keep legal education accessible for small business owners.